bottles is so cute.
Take one.
Action. Bark action. And cut. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. It has been a minute since I have sat down and done a sit down video. I think the last time I did a sit down video was my 37-week pregnancy update, which is a little over a month ago. Hold on. All right, back to video. Since then, I have given birth to our daughter Lilia Hayden. I will have her birth vlog up here for you guys to check out, but today I'm going to be filming my birth story because not everything that happened is included in our birth vlog. It was really hard to film our birth vlog because the hospital had really strict rules and regulations when it came to filming during labor and delivery, so we filmed as best as we could. But like I said, it wasn't as much. There's more to the story than what I said in that video, because honestly, when you're going through that, the last thing you're thinking about is recording, unfortunately. But I did do the best I did, like the best I could, and my husband also helped me with that. And I'm so glad we do have the footage we do have, especially like her first 36 hours of life. I love watching that video. I've probably watched it a million times and cried a million times. But let's go ahead and get right into the video, and I'm gonna tell you guys my entire birth story. So I have my little notepad right here, and it's just like the chronological order of events that happened. And I need this because I will probably forget something if I don't look at this. So if I'm looking down, I just let her out and now she wants back in. She's just gonna have to stay out. Okay, so on March 25th, I felt like labor was brewing. It was in the works. My body was in like pre-labor, or like the early labor stages, should I say. So me and my husband were really excited. We thought that the 25th would be the day that I would go into labor. So I was bouncing on the ball, and then my husband went to work later in the afternoon, and I decided to complete the miles circuit. If you guys have never heard of that, I will link the video down below that I followed. There is a girl here on YouTube who did the 90 minutes, and you can do it with her. So that's what I did. I did the full 90 minutes. I did alter the last move a little bit because it got really uncomfortable, but it still worked because I went into labor not even 24 hours or less than 24 hours later. I think it'd probably be like close to like 16 hours later. But after I completed that, I really didn't feel anything for the rest of the day. It wasn't until I went to bed that night and through the night that I started to have really bad lower back pain and also cramping that reminded me of my period. I get really bad period cramps. I had PCOS, or have. If you have been following me for a long time, you guys know that that's still up in the air. I was diagnosed with it as a teenager, and then when we started trying to have her, my body showed no signs of it. So I really don't know where I stand with that, but that's for another video, another time, and probably lots more doctor's appointments to try to figure it out. I had really bad period cramps, but honestly, it wasn't anything that I was not used to, so I was kind of just like, whatever. I just kind of slept through them, honestly. It wasn't really that hard for me to sleep through them, so I knew that it wasn't active labor because they had told me that if you're in active labor, you will be telling everyone to be quiet. You won't be able to sleep through them. They won't get better if you sit down or drink water. And I was able to sleep through them perfectly fine. They did wake me up occasionally, but I was able to fall back asleep. So I really didn't think anything of it. Then I woke up that morning, so March 26th, and at around 7 o'clock I went to the bathroom and I had my mucus plug and also my bloody show. So they are different, but kind of the same. It's really confusing. I'm not an expert, but what I've seen online is that they are different. You can lose your mucus plug multiple times throughout your pregnancy and it will grow back. But if you have your bloody show, that usually means labor is like starting to progress, whether it's the same day or a week or 2 weeks or something like that. But I definitely had both. I had the bloody mucus. So when they looked that up, that was definitely my bloody show. When I went to the hospital, that was presented in my thing, was that I had a bloody show. So that was at 7 a.m. and so we just kind of sat at home for a while. My husband didn't have to work until later that night, so we just were hanging out at the house. I was bouncing on the ball. I was having contractions like every 5 minutes, but they were very much like period cramps, and I just didn't feel like they were intense enough. But they were 5 minutes apart, so we decided to pack up the car and try to go walk. So we went, and it was actually a rainy day, so we went and walked around the store for about an hour. So we left the house at 10 a.m. So this is 3 hours after I woke up, and we drove to the mall, which is about 30 minutes away, and we walked around. And within an hour of us walking around the mall, I was so hot. I felt like I was having a heat stroke. I was sweating. I felt like my blood was boiling. I just was ready to go and just not be walking anymore. So we ended up leaving the mall, and we sat in the car. The hospital is literally right across the street from the mall, which is why we went to the mall in the first place, because we knew it was so close to the hospital. So we went and sat in the hospital parking lot for 30 minutes because in the mall, I did not feel any contractions. I just felt so hot and very nauseated that I don't even, like, if I was having the contractions that I was having at home, I definitely wouldn't have felt them because my mind was consumed on being extremely hot and being very nauseous. So I ended up going and sitting in the hospital parking lot for 30 minutes. I wanted to tell my husband, let's just go home. It's not happening. I don't feel contractions anymore. Like, they're just gonna send me home. But my husband was like, no, we're gonna go in, we're gonna get you checked. The worst thing they're gonna do is tell you, no, you're not in labor, to go home and come back at blah, blah, blah. They usually tell you when to come back. So we went up into the labor and delivery, and they checked me, and I was 4 centimeters dilated, and contractions were 4 minutes apart. Once I got into labor and delivery, I don't know if it was my mind playing tricks on me or if it was just that my body decided to intensify the contractions, but they did start to intensify, but I could still talk through them. I just couldn't. They just hurt more, should I say. By the time we got to labor and delivery and I was 4 centimeters dilated and the contractions were intensifying, it was around 12:30 p.m. So literally I lost my mucus plug at 7 a.m. and by 12:30 p.m. I was being admitted into the hospital to give birth to Lilia. So it really happened really quickly, and honestly, my early labor was not that scary. I wasn't worried that I wasn't gonna make it to the hospital in time. I honestly thought they were gonna send me away. If you were watching me on Instagram, a lot of people said you're not gonna be in labor, like you have to have intense contractions, but I did not. My body was contracting and they weren't intense. At that point, I was convinced that I was not gonna need the epidural because I was like, this is so easy. Like, I don't know what people are talking about. They just feel like really bad period cramps. Like, this is a breeze. Like, I can get through this, especially if labor was progressing as quickly as it was. I got admitted into the hospital around 1 p.m. and that's when I walked to my room where I would give birth. I was able to walk, guys. Like, I just strolled on down the hospital like halls with no shoes on, holding my purse, covering my butt in that thing, and just walk in like, okay, whatever. I wasn't nervous because honestly, I just was like, I guess I just hadn't processed it yet that I was actually in active labor because I just didn't feel like I was. Like, I did feel like I was in the hospital or in the mall, but at the same time, like, I just felt like I was sick or something. So I got into the hospital room and the nurse checked me again, and I was 6 centimeters dilated, and while she was checking me, my water broke. Literally, she was checking me and my water broke. So there was my wish of having a mermaid baby. They say that it was not really a wish, but it would have been cool for her to be born in her little amniotic sac. But yeah, my water broke while she was checking me. A little embarrassing, but probably it's happened multiple times, so probably wasn't the first woman that it's happened to. So I kind of just was like, okay, whatever. But I just felt like I was peeing myself constantly, and it wasn't like it hurt, and it was just uncomfortable sitting in your own pee, and they would change the pads and it would just pee more, and I would just feel like I was peeing more. And at some point I felt like I was peeing because I couldn't tell the difference between my water and my pee. So I was sitting in amniotic fluid sac, which is your baby's pee basically, and I feel like my own pee. I'm just being honest here, that's what it felt like. So at that point, still wanting to labor naturally, she told me the contractions weren't gonna intensify. They really didn't for about an hour. They were intense, but nothing that I couldn't get through. I did have to stop stop talking to people, and I had to breathe through them and focus, but they weren't extremely bad. At that time, I was bouncing on the ball, which you guys saw in my birth vlog. I was crying. They were painful, but honestly, if they continued at that rate, I would have been fine. But they didn't. They got really, really bad. So I don't exactly remember why I got off the ball. I think because they needed to check me, or I don't know. At that point, the contractions were really, really, really intensifying. And so I went and sat in the bed for some reason, and I was still a 6 centimeters dilated. I hadn't dilated. So she checked me when I wasn't even contracting as much as I was. And then when I really picked up contractions, my body just kind of stopped progressing. And I was like, this is like really weird. And then I got a dose of fentanyl. Oh, that's why I got in bed. That's why I got in bed, is because they asked me if I wanted fentanyl, and I said yes. And that's why I got in bed, because I wasn't allowed to bounce on the ball. And now that came back to me just now. Yeah, fentanyl was sitting in the bed. I just felt like I was really high, honestly. Like, I just felt really like in a daze. I felt loopy, just out of it. And it did help with contractions for like 30 minutes. And then they came back. And they came back with rage. They were like, you didn't feel me for 30 minutes? Now you're really gonna feel me. So I sat in the bed because they were so painful. I couldn't move back to the ball. I couldn't walk. I couldn't do anything. You weren't allowed to walk because of COVID around the halls or anything. And honestly, it was just like, I was just shocked at how painful they got. So I tried to get through them. I probably labored for another hour, hour and a half before I told Mauricio, like, I just can't do this. I can't sit in this bed staying still, no option to get in the bath, no option to take a shower, no option to walk, no option to bounce on the ball. Like, I just can't sit here and labor in pain. There was nothing I can do except for sit crisscross applesauce and clench my teeth, try to breathe through them. And it was just bad. And then back labor started. And then I was like, I want the epidural. So we called them and they came in with the epidural. They didn't ask you, are you sure? They just distributed it to me. And once I got the epidural, I was fine. But labor stopped. I stopped contracting. My uterus didn't or my cervix didn't dilate anymore. And I ended up having to go on the peanut ball. At that time, I really regretted getting the epidural. But once I got the epidural, they checked me again. And just think that I just went through a round of fentanyl, which was an hour. And then after it wore off, the contractions got really intense. And I did it for about an hour and a half. And they checked me after I got the epidural, and I was still only a 6 centimeters dilated. I was a 6 stretchy centimeters dilated, so I was getting close to a 7, but I hadn't progressed at all. Like, I progressed so much from 7 to like 1:30, but from like 1:30 to at like, I don't even know what time I got the epidural. I would say like 6 or 7 p.m. I hadn't progressed like at all. I was just staggering at a 6. Once I got the epidural, contractions stopped. They put me in a certain position with the peanut ball in between my legs to open up the cervix, I think, or the uterus, the cervix. I don't remember, one of the two. And they started Pitocin, and contractions started picking back up, and I still felt them in my back. So it helped. The epidural helps with contractions that I felt in the front of my belly, which is normally where they are. But then I think she flipped sunny side up, and the epidural was just not helping my back labor at all. I felt it and I couldn't move. I couldn't even like move my legs really. They were so heavy and numb, and I was in so much pain. I was so uncomfortable. I was like, this epidural sucks. Like, what the heck? I'm still feeling it. I kept pressing my little button, and then it just wasn't working. And so it worked for the front. My legs were like numb, but my back, no, I felt that. So after that, I need to think where I'm at. So after that, I sat with the peanut ball, and then they checked me again, and I was finally a 9 centimeters dilated. And this probably is around, my daughter was born at 10:43, so this was probably around 9 or 9:30. They checked and I was 9 centimeters, but she was still really, really high. Her booty was like in my ribs still. Like, you could still feel her booty in my ribs. So they like inverted the hospital bed. So I was like, my head was down here, my feet were up. I guess that like works against gravity, and they were hoping that that would push her down. But then I got super nauseous. I felt like I was going to throw up, and I was trying to tell the nurse, like, I'm gonna throw up, like, please get me back up so I can like throw up. And the bed didn't move fast enough, and I ended up throwing up, and I was choking on it, and it was very chaotic in that moment. Mauricio was like holding the bucket to my face. The nurse was still trying to move the bed. I was choking, and it was just like a horrible like 5 minutes. But they said that that was gonna happen. Even when I was trying to go naturally, they did tell me there was gonna be a 5-minute period where I felt like I was going to be like, it was gonna be the end of me. And I felt that still with the epidural. I still felt like it was gonna be the end of me. I hate throwing up. That was my one thing, was if I was throwing up because I was in so much pain, I was gonna get the epidural, because I do not like throwing up. I threw up so much in the beginning of my pregnancy. I threw up so much throughout my entire childhood. I had really bad acid reflux. I threw up so much in my life that I did not want to throw up, and if I could prevent it with the epidural, with the pain, I was gonna do that. After she checked me and I was a 9, baby was still high, and I threw up, she checked me again because she said that's nature's way of pushing baby down, and indeed, in fact, it did. Baby was engaged, she could see the head, and so she said we were ready to start pushing because I was at 10 now, and baby was engaged in the birth canal. She could see her head basically in the canal, and we were gonna start practice pushing. I only practice pushed for like 5 to 10 minutes, and then the nurse told me I have to stop and wait for the doctor because I was pushing her out very quickly. First time moms tend to push for sometimes up to 5 or 6 hours before they make the baby, you know, come out. And sometimes they even end up needing like the forceps or the vacuum or an episiotomy or those types of things to get baby out eventually. But I practice pushing for 5 to 10 minutes. Then I stopped pushing for 10 minutes waiting for my doctor to come. It wasn't even my doctor. My doctor was on a vacation, so I had just an on-call doctor, which I was fine with. And they took like 10 minutes to get there. That was the worst 10 minutes of my life. Not pushing hurt more than pushing. So I felt pushing. I felt lots and lots of pressure. I feel like I felt more than a lot of people felt with the epidural, but I definitely still felt lots of pressure. So the epidural didn't like eliminate the pressure. I know some women, the epidural does eliminate the pressure, but not for me. I could feel the pressure really bad. And that's why I wanted to push. I just wanted to get her out. Also, I didn't want her to have a cone head. And if babies get stuck in the birth canal for X amount of time, that's what forms like the cone head. And usually it evens out by itself, but I really just didn't want that. And I was on a mission to push this baby out as quickly as possible. I did not want to push for 5 hours. I was already so exhausted and out of breath that I just couldn't handle it. At this point, I started shaking really bad, uncontrollably. Like, I mean, like shaking. Like, I could not control, I could not stop. I felt like I was in Antarctica and my body was trying to keep warm. And after that, I then was put onto oxygen. I guess because my oxygen levels were going down. I'm not sure exactly why. She just kind of threw an oxygen mask on me, which made it even harder to push, in my opinion. But Mauricio did the whole back thing where you help to like push. Like if your husband helps pick up your back, and like you really can like put your chin to your chest and really push, especially if you have epidural and you're not feeling so much, you're just feeling pressure, you kind of don't know what you're pushing. And while I was stop pushing, I kept asking her, can I push, can I push, can I push? She kept saying no. I did have a bowel movement. I will admit that. Mauricio saw it and he still talks about it to this day. I did end up going to the bathroom, but it is what it is, right? It doesn't matter. And my nurse told me that I was doing it. You know, some people say that the nurses don't tell you. My nurse did say like, you're having a bowel movement, which I thought was odd, and it kind of made it more awkward. But at the same time, I was like, just get this baby out of me. Like, I just want to push. Once the doctor came in, they said that I could start pushing whenever I was ready. Within 10 minutes, she was born. I pushed like maybe 5 or 6 times, and I pushed 3 10s on each contraction. So I would push for 10 seconds, relax, take a breath, push for 10, take a breath, push for 10, take a breath, and take a little rest, and then do it again. So 3 10-second pushes each contraction. And she was out within 5 to 10 minutes of that, and she was born at 10:43 p.m. 10:43 or 10:48. I don't remember which one. One of those. My brain is kind of wonky because I have little to no sleep. But then she was born and she was crying. The second they put her on my chest, she stopped crying. She was so perfect. She was so cute. She had a head full of hair, which I was so excited for because of all the heartburn I had. But honestly, my birth experience was really, really great. I didn't feel like I had that big of expectations. The only thing is I didn't want the epidural. If I was to have another baby, I would probably go without the epidural, but I would look into birthing at a birthing location, like a, what is it called? Like, you know, with midwives and a doula, and being able to be in the water with a bath, being able to walk around. I feel like I would have thrived better in that environment, but I'm not mad at my birth experience, and I don't regret getting the epidural at all, because I feel like if I wouldn't have gotten it, I would have not had a good labor and delivery experience, because I just didn't thrive just sitting in the bed like that. And honestly, that was my only option at that hospital, in that hospital room itself. So I'm happy with every decision that I made, and if I was to do it again, I honestly would try to go natural again, but I would probably go the midwife route with a doula and have my baby at like a birthing place, like a, what are they called? Like, why can't I think of it? Like a birthing suite, and not at a hospital. But that's just my personal preference. But if I had any advice for moms, it would be to not have high expectations and to go in knowing that anything could happen, but do know what you don't want. So if you definitely don't want an episiotomy, then know that. If you don't want to use the vacuum or the forceps, know that. If you want to avoid a C-section at all costs, know that. And make sure you stick to that. If they would have told me that I needed a C-section after like 5 minutes of pushing, I would have been like, no, we're gonna push for like 2 hours and then we'll see where we're at, unless baby gets into stress or something like that. But I would say just know the basics. So husband stitch is a thing. I did not get that, at least I don't think I did. They didn't ask me, but I definitely didn't want it, so hopefully they didn't give it to me. I didn't want a C-section, I didn't want an episiotomy, I didn't want to have to use the vacuum or the forceps, and this was all unless medically necessary, except for obviously the husband stitch, that's not medically necessary. But yeah, mine were only if extremely medically necessary to do. But I had a really smooth labor. All in all, I would say I was in active labor for, I would say, less than 12 hours, because I wouldn't consider me being in active labor until I got into my hospital room, which was 1:30, and I had her at around 10:30, 10:40-ish. So that's only 9 hours. So that's what I would consider. But if you want to consider the 7 o'clock losing my mucus plug active labor, then it would be a little bit over 12 hours, but like close to 16 hours. But if I was to say when I started active labor, I would say when I got admitted to the hospital, that's when I was in active labor. So all in all, less than 12 hours, like 9 hours, 10 hours. But yeah, that is basically my birth story. It's pretty basic and not really super interesting, but you guys wanted to see it and know it. And also there's a lot of things that I didn't mention in the vlog that happened. So now you guys know all the details of my birth experience. Leave your comments down below. Questions, if you have questions about anything, leave them down below. I'll be happy to answer them if I know the answer to them. If you guys have any like questions, if you want me to give my opinion on them, I honestly don't have like a medical background, so I can give you my opinion on them, but just know that they are my personal opinion and they are educated via Google. But anyways, that is going to be the end of today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know down below what your birth experience was like. How long were you in labor? Did you have a like tiring labor, a long labor, a painful labor, an easy labor? Let me know. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed, and we'll see you guys in our next one. Bye guys.
Show me what it's like to be circling among the clouds, because without you